Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the morning devotion with me, Beau. It is July 22nd today, and we're going to go through 2 chapters, reading through them. And as you guys know, on these devotions, I love to just go through the Bible, help people understand the big themes of the Bible, big topics of the Bible, and how it all kind of works out. It's pretty awesome. It's a lot different than what you might think. There's so much stuff out there on the Bible. I know growing up very secular and progressive and very against Christianity, you kind of bag on it and you just, you never want to read it, and then when I finally did read it, it was a lot different than I thought. And it made sense to my world. It made sense to what I see in the world. It makes sense to what is the problem with us as human beings, and we certainly do have a huge problem. And a lot of times we try to cover those things up. We make our own fig leaves, so to speak. And so I find it great and so awesome that with all the technology we have today, that we can actually just post our reading of the Bible and just going through it. And I thank you so much for joining me. Mike is still in San Diego. Man, you must be tan as ever. And hope you're enjoying the water, the waves, just the California weather. You're in a place called Southtown. That's where you're at, San Diego, Southtown. I think of the band POD is from that area. And they definitely have put Southtown on the map. For sure. And so, anyway, have fun in Southtown. So let's get into it. We're going to read through this and see kind of what the theme is of these 2 chapters, Exodus 16 and 17. And Laura, hope you're doing well and jamming. You need to send me some music. I think I told you to send me a few songs or something that you'd like to sing. I'd love to get with you during the week and, we could kind of do some music. It says, then the whole community of Israel set out from Elim and journeyed into the wilderness of Sin between Elim and Mount Sinai. They arrived there on the 15th day of the second month, 1 month after leaving the land of Egypt. There, too, the whole community of Israel complained about Moses and Aaron. So this is becoming a theme, even in the great deliverance of the Hebrew nation against the incredible military army of Egypt. There was a complaining and how God was going to deliver them. And here we see that consistent theme. Do I find a consistent theme in my own life? Man, what a question. Do I find a consistent thing in my own life? How about you? I think you might go, oh boy, I do see some consistent things that I don't like about me. If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt, they moaned. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted. But now you have brought us into the wilderness to starve us all to death. Well, it doesn't sound like you ate the meat. It sounds like you had some bread, but there was a lot of meat around you. But still, complaining. And then it says, the Lord said to Moses, look, I am going to rain down food from heaven for you. Each day the people can go out and pick as much food as they need for that day. I will test them in this to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. Hey, man does not live by bread alone. I'm going to give him some food, and it'll be a miraculous thing. But let's see, how they respond to even the daily miraculous. It makes me wonder today how I respond to the daily miracles of life. Do I treat it as all trivial, or do I see things as, man, a real blessing? The miracle of being alive, the miracle of seeing trees, the miracle of taking a walk, all that. How do I treat just my daily abilities? It says he says, on the sixth day they will gather food, and when they prepare it, it will be twice as much as usual. So each day they can go out and pick as much food as they need for that day. And we're going to see if they follow some instruction. How good am I at following instructions? So Moses and Aaron said to all the people, by evening you will realize it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. In the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your complaints, which are against him, not against us. What have we done that you should complain about us? Then Moses added, the Lord will give you meat to eat in the evening and bread to satisfy you in the morning, for he has heard all your complaints against him. What have we done? Yes, your complaints are against the Lord, not against us. Then Moses said to Aaron, announce this to the entire community of Israel. Present yourself before the Lord, for he has heard your complaining. And as Aaron spoke to the whole community of Israel, they looked out toward the wilderness. There they could see the awesome glory of the Lord in the cloud. Remember, there's these amazing appearances of God, very unique in or around the Hebrew nation. It says, then the Lord said to Moses, I've heard the Israelites' complaints. Now tell them, in the evening you will have meat to eat, and in the morning you will have all the bread you want. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. That evening the vast numbers of quail flew and covered the camp. The next morning the area around the camp was wet with dew, and when the dew evaporated, a flaky substance as fine as frost blanketed the ground. The Israelites were puzzled when they saw it. What is it? They asked each other. They had no idea what it was. And Moses told them, it is the food the Lord has given you to eat. These are the Lord's instructions. Each household should gather as much as it needs. Pick up 2 quarts for each person in your tent. So the people of Israel did as they were told. Some gathered a lot, some only a little. But when they measured it out, everyone had just enough. Those who gathered a lot had nothing left over, and those who gathered only a little had enough. Each family had just what is needed. Sounds good. Then Moses told them, don't keep any of it until morning. But some of them didn't listen. Sounds bad. And kept some of it till morning. But then it was full of maggots and had a terrible smell. Moses was very angry with them. You can see Moses getting a little angry again. This is kind of a little bit of a theme with Moses. Get a little bent for sure. Can't these people understand that the Lord is with us? Don't you understand that the Lord is with us? Can't you heed any instruction? Human beings are super hard to convince. Even if God were to visit the planet, it doesn't mean that we would obey or want God or even be convinced that there is a God that exists. We are stiff-necked, hard-hearted for sure. And it says, after the people gathered the food morning by morning, each family according to its need, and as the sun became hot, the flakes they had not picked up melted and disappeared. And on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much as usual, 4 quarts for each person instead of 2. Then all the leaders of the community came and asked Moses for an explanation. He told them, this is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow will be the day of complete rest, a holy Sabbath set apart to the Lord. So bake or boil as much as you want today and set aside what is left for tomorrow. So they put some aside until morning, just as Moses had commanded. And in the morning the leftover food was wholesome and good, without maggots or odor. Moses said, eat this food today, for today is the Sabbath day dedicated to the Lord. There will be no food on the ground today. You may gather the food for 6 days, but the 7th day is a Sabbath. There will be no food on the ground that day. Some of the people went out anyway on the 7th day, and they found no food. The Lord asked Moses, how long will these people refuse to obey my commands and instructions? They must realize that the Sabbath is the Lord's gift to you. Isn't that beautiful? The Sabbath is the Lord's gift to them, to the wandering nation. And that is why he gives you a 2-day supply on the 6th day, so there will be enough for 2 days. Hey, you get to rest, man. Chill out. Hey, how good am I at relaxing? How good am I at chilling out? How good am I at just being able to rest? Or do I feel like I always have to go, 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 go? Is it always make money, make money, make money, make money? Just this drive where you can't take a day off. Can't go on vacation. Can't take someone out. You're just constantly on the move. And it says, that is why he gives you a 2 day. Okay, on the Sabbath day, you must each stay in your place. Do not go out and pick up food on the 7th day. So the people did not gather any food on the 7th day. This is going to be verse 31. The Israelites called the food manna. What is it, basically? It was white like coriander seed, and it tastes like honey wafers. Then Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Fill a 2-quart container with manna to preserve it for your descendants. Then the later generations will be able to see the food I gave you in the wilderness when I set you free from Egypt. Okay. And it says, Moses said to Aaron, get a jar and fill it with 2 quarts of manna, then put it in a sacred place before the Lord to preserve it for all future generations. Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded Moses, some kind of proof, some kind of evidence for the future generations of Israel that, hey, man, this really did take place. This really did happen. It's great that God says, hey, I know how stiff-necked you guys are. I know how you humans are super hard of heart. So, hey, how about some evidence? I don't know if you've ever visited that website, Pattern of Evidence. I think it's Patterns of Evidence. It's a great ministry. And I think the gentleman who runs it is an archaeologist. And I get his little news emails. But he did a lot of videos, actually. But one of them on the Exodus and on what we're reading right now. And just really fascinating stuff, really great research, and But it's good. You get to see the evidence, even so long ago, for what's happened in the book of Exodus. So pretty phenomenal. Patterns of evidence, I want to say it's called, if you wanted to look that up. It says, so the people, verse 35, ate manna for 40 years until they arrived in the land where they would settle. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. 40 years they were wandering. 40 years, right? Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention. It says, then he put the sacred, when Moses said to Aaron, get a jar and fill it with those 2 quarts of manna. He said, put it in a sacred place before the Lord to preserve it in all future generations. Aaron did just as the Lord has commanded. He eventually placed it in the Ark of the Covenant in front of the stone tablets inscribed with the terms of the covenant. So the people of Israel ate manna for 40 years until they arrived at the land where they would settle. Okay? And then it says the container used to measure the manna was an omer, which was 1/10 of an ephah. It held about 2 quarts. So cool. God provides evidence for the future generation to see that, sure enough, this was the stuff that came down. Certainly the Hebrew nation, its survival, its deliverance is all predicated on the work of God. There's no other explanation of how this nation could survive out there for this long. But yet God puts them in a position to where it is a miracle, that people would see that it is a work of God, how this nation was built. It's very unique. God's putting his hand on it, so to speak. He's building evidence so that everybody, the other nations, the population that is growing on the earth, has no excuse for the existence of God. That's the crazy thing about Israel, right? The crazy truth about Israel is that Israel is a proof text of the existence of the deity. Its existence is predicated on the deliverance and preservation of this people in the desert. Coming out of slavery, not having any food, 40 years out there. And yet they've been provided for and they come in strong. Wow, they're gaining strength. It's unbelievable. And at the Lord's command, the whole community of Israel left the wilderness of sin and moved from place to place. Eventually, they camped at Rephidim, but there was no water there for the people to drink. So they got meat, right? They got manna, and now we see that they need water. So once more, the people complained against Moses to give us water to drink, they demanded. Quiet, Moses replied. Why are you complaining against me, and why are you testing the Lord? Don't test the Lord your God. Ooh, right? Complaining, testing God. Is my complaining a testing of the Lord? Do I find myself testing God through my complaints? Am I a complainer? When you go to a restaurant, do you go to complain? Are you already of the mindset to complain to the waiter or waitress before you even sit down? Are you kind of in that kind of turmoil in your heart where, you're going to complain in a day because that's just how you roll? You find yourself constantly testing the Lord. Meaning when you're complaining, maybe what you're doing is you're really testing God's provision or his ability to provide. Or you're not trusting God. Perhaps God has put you in that situation, just as God put the people of Israel in this situation. And perhaps I need to learn how to surrender and submit. Now we start getting somewhere in the chapters, right? What is God teaching these people? Abraham had to learn to trust God. Isaac had to learn to trust God. Jacob had to learn to trust God and wrestled with God, right? On the planet, by the way. Now, we have a big population of people, and God now is working collectively, all of them, working with the entire nation. So we see a little difference between just working with individually one person like Abraham or Isaac or Jacob. But now we see sorry about that. But now we see God working collectively in this nation, teaching them, though, what it means to submit, what it means to surrender, how to trust. Has God shown enough of himself to the people of Israel so that they really have no excuse not to trust? Has God provided for us in ways where we really have no excuse why we reject, why we would not trust God? Remember, the point, the drive of the Bible is to get us to heaven. It's to get us into heaven. It's not to keep us here forever, right? Right here. It's to get out of this body and get into the new. That is the goal. Get out of this body, get into the new. Get out of this body, get into the new. I need to get out of this body, get into the new. That's the drive. And as God demonstrated his grace towards us in a way in which we should not doubt. And the answer is yeah. Jesus has come to show us the Father. He's come to reveal something. He is the revelation of the deity in bodily form. Through the Messiah, we have a way to get that body, to get that peace, to get that eternal life, to get that health, that prosperity that we want. So there is something God's doing in the people of nation, in the nation of the Hebrews. He certainly is teaching them that man should not live on bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Father. And it says, but tormented by thirst, they continue to argue with Moses. Why did you bring us out of Egypt? Why are you trying to kill us, our children, and our livestock with thirst? The world constantly complains. It blows my mind that on the news, they'll mention, the war's back up with Iran and the United States, and then the next screen is the fuel pump. Now you guys have to pay $4.50, $5.50, $6 a gallon of gas. And what's crazy about this is we just had the World Cup in the United States. The United States was part of it. Canada was part of it. And Mexico was part of it, right? Where they hosted the games for the World Cup. This is a big event. These places were packed. 70,000 people packing a stadium. I don't know if you went on Ticketmaster to see how much the tickets were to the World Cup. People aren't hurting for money. That's for sure. And yet we complain. The gallon of gas is not $3 anymore. It's $4. It's not $4 anymore. It's $5. It's not $5 anymore. It's $6. And we complain all we want. But then we still go to our events. We still do our things. We still go to Starbucks. We still do this. We still do that. Do you see the problem? Yeah, it's just everything's just a show. Meaning the real deal, when God reveals really where we're at, it's going to be right here with the people of Israel. A lot of complaining, a lot of whining, because we love to complain. We're pros, man. It's ingrained in us. The Lord said to Moses, walk out in front of the people, take your staff, the one you used when you struck the water of the Nile, and call some of the elders of Israel to join you. I will stand before you on the rock at Mount Sinai. Pretty interesting. God right there. That's on the planet, by the way. Mount Sinai. Strike the rock and water will come gushing out. Then the people will be able to drink. So Moses struck the rock as he was told, and water gushed out as the elders looked on. Moses named the place Massa, which means test, and Meribah, which means arguing, because the people of Israel argued with Moses and tested the Lord by saying, "Is the Lord here with us or not?" Okay, so Moses strikes the rock with his rod, as he was told, and water gushed out as the elders look on. So the rock gets struck. Might want to remember that. While the people of Israel was still at Rephidim, the warriors of Amalek attacked them. Oh, the old Amalek folk. And it says, Moses commanded Joshua, "Choose some men and go out and fight the army of Amalek for us. Tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill, holding the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua did what Moses had commanded and fought the army of Amalek. Meanwhile, Moses, Aaron, and Hur climbed to the top of a nearby hill. As long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hand, the Amalekites gained the advantage. Moses' arms soon became tired. He could no longer hold them up. Oh my gosh, everything's predicated on you holding up that staff. And it says, so Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on. And they stood. You know, you might say, some people, the complainer might say, "Man, why isn't God giving Moses the ability to stand and hold up his hands?" But you know what God did provide? He provided friends. He provided friends to help you to sit down on a rock, right? And notice, they stood on each side of Moses holding up his hands, so his hands held steady until sunset. And as a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of Amalek in the battle. Isn't that beautiful how God provides? But he provides a lot different than what you and I might think. We might think, hey, God's going to provide me to stand up forever. God's going to provide me to be strong so I can raise my hands and not be sore. But instead, God provides you friends to be able to rest your legs. And he provides you friends to be able to hold up your arms so that you don't have to feel that weight. You know, people that can help shoulder the load, right? Kind of the Lord of the Rings, right? To shoulder that load, you know? Because the ring is it's heavy duty, right? It's a serious deal. Who can help shoulder the load of Biblo Baggins, right? Ooh, you need really awesome people to be able to, help you in life. Man, and that's what the body of Christ is supposed to be there for us to help one another out. Shoulder the load. Ease one another's burdens. Help. Pick up stuff. Take care of things. You see something? What's your mind on? Is your mind so self-focused that you can't see how you can help other people? Are you so making a beeline to the office that you can't see the paper that's around? Where is your mind? Is my heart to help out? Or is my heart really to do what I like to do? It's kind of interesting, right? I can find my own selfishness creeping in, where I find, really, I'm not really there to help out anybody. I'm there just to kind of stroke my own ego and be like, oh, wow, I'm doing what I love to do. And so I love to do. But am I going to go help out? Nope. The kids ministry? No way. VBS? It's a revealer, man. It shows really what kind of ministers we really are. But do we have a real heart to help and to hold up hands and to help people sit down and really show that beautiful hospitality and care? It's great that Moses had assistants. He had different kinds of assistants that had different kind of roles. You had Joshua out on the front line. Notice you had Aaron and Hur with Moses, holding up hands, man, providing a place to rest, getting him, helping Moses to do what he needs to do in the ministry. And isn't that cool? You have different people. You got people that help out here, help out there. They're on this front line. They're on that front line. They're doing this. They're doing that. But you got different people doing different things. Aaron can't complain and say, hey, why isn't Joshua over here? Because Joshua's doing his thing. Joshua can't complain to Hur and say, why isn't Hur on the battlefield fighting the Amalekites? Why, he can't, because Hur's helping out Aaron take care of Moses, and help out Moses, assist him. You could see how, you can complain about everybody, at the job, on a staff or something like that, or in a church. You can complain and say, hey, but you know what? Everybody's got a role to play. Not everybody's a catcher. Not everybody's a pitcher. Not everybody's a right fielder. Not everybody's first baseman. You can't do it that way. Everybody's got to play the part. And we just got to stay focused on what our parts are. It's not, but in our parts, we are helpers. Don't get me wrong. When we're, we don't just stay so focused that we don't see the paper on the ground. No, I want to be a genuine person that want to help out people. I want to help pick up. I want to help take care of. I want to help serve. But then there also is the focus that I need in ministry too, to where I'm going to need to do what is set before me. A responsibility. I need to help out here. And this is where it is. This is where the call is. This is where I need to be. Joshua can't just go, hey, I need to go pick up paper. I can't fight. No, he's got to fight. And Aaron and Hur can't say, hey, I've got to go pick up paper, because they got to help out Moses at this time. See, we got to realize that there's a time and a place, and there's a time to pick up paper, but then there's a time to preach a sermon, and there's a time to, play music, and there's a time to, do a class for the kids, and there's a time to, share with the youth ministry. And, we got to understand there's a distinction, not get bitter in our heart, not get upset that people don't do what we do. They got their own roles to play. We're going to have to trust the Lord with each other, aren't we? Yeah, we need to trust the Lord with each other. After the victory, the Lord instructed Moses, write down on a scroll. Isn't that cool? Write it down. Again, we see this, write down. This is something we see throughout the Bible. Write it down as a permanent reminder. This is evidence. There are permanent reminders. Why did God write things in a book? As a permanent reminder, as evidence for the work that he's doing in a people group. Write down on a scroll as a permanent reminder and read it out loud to Joshua. I will erase the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar there and named it Yahweh Nisi, which means the Lord is my banner. Isn't that cool? Banner. You might sing a worship song that says the word banner. He said, they have raised their fist against the Lord's throne. So now the Lord will be at war with Amalek generation after generation. Okay, so Amalek, man, is the first battle that the Hebrew nation is up against. Amalek is coming against them. They are weak. They are in the wilderness. They are on the border of Canaan, and they need water. They need food, right? They got manna. They got meat. They got God's provision of water, and the enemies see that they are weak and can attack, or they are maybe disjointed, and maybe it's because they're complaining as well that Amalek thinks that, hey, we can go get them. And maybe when we complain too, it's easy for the enemy to keep attacking, So very interesting. Yahweh Nisi, the Lord is my banner. He's my banner, my strength kind of idea, right? The banner of the Lord, you're waving the flag. God, 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 kind of thing. Okay, cool passage. So neat. I love how Paula says God has answered so many prayers. Amen. Absolutely. I'm glad, Paula, you're counting your blessings and just being reminded of how God is blessed. And it's difficult in challenging times, for sure. Okay, so those are 2 chapters. Thanks for joining me on just reading through the Bible, and we find out just how cool it is and how applicable it is to our world and our personal lives. So take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.